Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. Today we're doing another reaction video. It is one of the tech podcasts I follow. It is called Develop Yourself. It's by Brian Jenny, and the title of the podcast is Worst Developer on the Team. Very intriguing title. So I thought, why don't I watch it? Then I watched it. I watched it quite a few times because it is such an interesting podcast, and I thought I should do a reaction video on this podcast. I mean, it deserves a reaction video. And I think this video will get pretty popular in the future. I'm pretty sure about that because the amount of insight you'll get by being the worst developer in the team, I mean, that's like the worst nightmare. But Brian faced it and he has shared his experience. I think he's kind enough to share that. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, so let's see what Brian talk about being the worst developer in the team. Okay.
Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your guest host. Today, I'm going to talk about my experience being the worst software developer on a team, the uncomfortable feeling that I felt during this awful time, and why it was actually one of the best moments in my career and ended up really shaping my career in ways that I couldn't even imagine, and why I'm really thankful for that opportunity now in retrospect.
Yeah, I think he's being just too kind. Uh, Being a worst developer in a team is the worst experience. Like the feeling that you're not productive enough, or the feeling that you're not doing your best, is not the best feeling. So yeah, let's see like what he did that made him the worst developer.
So, about 6 or 7 years ago, I joined a really small startup. And 2 years prior to this, I just joined my first company as a software developer. It was a really great team, tons of encouragement, motivation, great people. They really taught me the art of writing software. I came in there knowing like nothing. I knew HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, good amount of jQuery, and AngularJS, which is a now defunct, archaic framework that no one is using. So here I was at this place doing pretty well, actually really happy, making okay money, really proud of myself, and with a great team of people. Basically everything you could want, right?
Yeah, so I think he's talking about his first job. So he was doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, and bit of Angular. This is what I would say expect from a junior developer. I mean, this is what I expect from any developer. So his tech stack was pretty generic. I mean, uh, you wouldn't be too uncomfortable doing that if you like doing front end. I mean, if you don't like doing front end, then obviously doing jQuery or Angular would be nightmare. But if you like doing that, then I think it's a decent tech stack. And I think he's talking maybe like because he's a engineering manager now, so he probably talks about time of 2015, 2016, or around that. So back then we were using jQuery and Angular. Interesting time.
And then I thought, you know what? It's time to leave. 2 years in, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Probably time to leave. It wasn't an easy decision. Like I said, I liked everybody. I just knew I needed to be exposed to a more modern tech stack and different ways of working, or else I would probably be the best developer on this team only and maybe shoot myself in the foot going forward. I knew that there was more out there. I'm working in the San Francisco Bay Area. I also worked at some boot camps on the side. I saw what people out there were making, one, and I knew that I was very underpaid. Two, I saw all the cool things they were working with, like React, which was pretty new at the time. And I thought, man, I'm never going to use that stuff here. I better get out of here for basically my own safety going forward. I better future proof myself.
Believe it or not, that was my reason of leaving my second job. Most of the jobs I left because of the reason that I didn't feel I would grow as a developer. And that's not a bad uh, reason to be out of a team where you're too comfortable. You know the tech stack, you know the code base. But the thing is, you would be a king or queen of that code base. But if they ask you to work on some different code base or different technology, you would not be that comfortable. So I think that was the reason Brian quit, and that was the reason I quit in my previous jobs, because I wanted to work in technology where there is an upward slope, where a lot of people are excited about talking about, and you know the future will be of that technology. In his case, it was React. In my case, I was doing React, but My reason was the company I was working with, the team I was working with, was doing a lot of design stuff, but not they were not building a lot of logic. So I was doing a lot of CSS, but I wasn't doing a lot of JavaScript. So I thought, why don't I find a job where I would be doing more of JavaScript so that I can learn that? And this is one of the things I want to. I always tell people that initial 5 years, it's all about learning, and and companies are paying you to learn. So they were paying me, and if I quit and go to another job, they would maybe pay me even more. So why don't I take a salary jump? And but I need to learn the new tech stack. Well, I already wanted it, so that's not a bad idea. So I think that this is what Brian did with quitting his previous job.
Anyway, I went to a bunch of interviews. I went on the interview market, the interview circuit, sucked a bunch of interviews, which is another topic, save for another day, and finally passed one for a really small startup. They were using Ember.js, Rails, and Postgres. I had used none of these things. I said, I'll take it. My salary doubled, which made me even more nervous. I thought, what do these people expect from me now? You would
Yeah, in tech, if you quit your job, you would get double salary. I'm joking. Uh, but usually in a company, you don't get that much raise. But if you quit, then there's a high chance you get maybe 20, 30, 40% jump. Not bad.
think that getting a really big salary, like a 200% increase, most people would be ecstatic about, which I was. But on the inside, I was freaking out. I thought, oh my God, what? I mean, if they're paying me this much, then what do they expect me to do on the job? And on day one, when I came into this 5-person startup, I knew I was way in over my head. The co-founders, they were featured like in Forbes 30 under 30. They had worked at multiple FANG companies, really high growth, big tech companies in the Bay Area, like think Apple, Facebook, these kind of companies, right? So the lead developer was also the creator, or one of the big, he was actually one of the lead developer was one of the main contributors for a very popular library called Ember.js. And then there was me. I had no experience with Ember.
Oh, so Brian is working with some of the top developers, and he has no experience working in the new tech stack. So I can feel that he is in little trouble. But it all depends on your team as well. Sometimes a team is good, or they'll give you enough time to like learn the technology, be comfortable in, and then meanwhile, like you can support them as much as you can, because you don't want to be a bottleneck. You don't want to be someone who's just dragging with the team. You want to run with the team, right?
Ruby, or even working in a startup. But I knew JavaScript, I thought, or so I thought. On day one, there was basically no onboarding. I jumped straight into pairing with the lead developer and the CTO. Pairing means I'm sitting down with these two people and we're writing code together. We're essentially sharing a keyboard and a screen. And we're talking about the code and what to do in order to make things work. Then later that day, we went to an on-site at a shipping container place. We were in the Bay Area at the shipping docks, and that's because this software was used to automate the process of tracking shipping containers as they move across the United States. Someone made a joke about Dijkstra, and I thought, who is that? They were all laughing. I just faked it and acted like I knew what they were talking about. I did not. Dijkstra, by the way, is a famous algorithm for determining the shortest distance between 2 points in a graph. I didn't know that because I don't have a computer science degree, and I didn't study data structures and algorithms. Oops. Anyway.
Oh man, you can feel that he's in a team where everyone's just super smart.
So I was like, okay, these people are smart. They're not only smart, they're way smarter than me. And they're like tossing around casual jokes about graphing algorithms. Okay, that's the kind of people I need to be dealing with now. Next, there was a bug at work in the code base we were dealing with that dealt with closure scope. And I thought, what? Hoisting was another thing affecting a test. I had never even written a test in JavaScript before. Overall, I knew that I had a lot to learn, and they were pretty patient with me in general. There were some blowups. I did my best in many ways. I was working hard. I was staying long hours and doing stuff. My work was often late.
Yeah, this is what happened when you join a team and you don't know much about the tech they're using. Then you would just spend hours and hours and hours understanding a small thing. I did that. It's a horrible way of working, but there is just no other way. If you don't get it, you just have to find a way to get that. There's no other way. I mean, you can ask your peers, but they can only help you at a certain limit. After that, I mean, no one will hold your hand and then do work for you. You have to do work for yourself, and you have to understand the code base and everything around it. Tough position.
I made some big blow ups, some really, really embarrassing ones. Like the one time I made a bug in the code that sent out 1,000 emails to customers, which was a big deal because this is an early stage startup. So there weren't a ton of customers in the first place, and they may not be really forgiving. For example, like if you worked at Netflix and that happened, maybe your customer's like, I don't care. It's a small startup, they might care. And that was really embarrassing. There was a time I accidentally pushed something into production that shouldn't have been in production. There was a time I erased parts of the database. These are common scenarios, by the
Yeah, so he messed up. He messed up a lot. Uh, I mean, he was junior back then, and I don't know why. I mean, I don't get it. So he was able to push that code that would send emails, but wouldn't someone, I mean, approve your PR, review your PR? So why didn't they catch it then? I mean, ultimately it's your job to make sure that your code is correct, but someone definitely reviews code, especially in this team where there are a lot of senior developers. They would probably read his code, and I wouldn't say it's all his fault. I mean, if someone is reviewing his code and didn't find the bug, then maybe that bug wasn't that obvious, or maybe Brian is just too hard on himself. You never know about these things, but this is what I'm guessing, that they probably have loose ends, and that made his job miserable.
way that many developers will tell you they've done. But at the time, it just felt like I had loss after loss after loss. And the team was continually patient with me. They kept holding my hand. They gave me tasks they knew I could probably do. They offered me more chances to take on more and more complex tasks. And I just wasn't performing that well. I'll just be completely honest. And then one day, finally, I got called out. Got called out for my lack of fundamentals and performance by the lead developer on his last day of work. So this guy was incredibly smart, went on to found a multi-million-dollar startup in South America, I believe. Really smart guy. The last day they asked him, is there anything we could be doing better as a company, as a team? We're really small, remember? So this is not like some big formal process, and there's no HR people there to make sure you don't get your feelings hurt. So he's like, yeah, I do have some feedback, actually, particularly.
Oh, so it's the last day of his lead leaving the team, and he has a feedback for him.
For you, Brian. I'm like, oh no. And he said, it's difficult to work with you because you don't seem to understand the fundamentals of JavaScript, React, ES6, promises, closure, and classes. And he just kind of named off like a laundry list of stuff. He was a very pragmatic guy, your typical software engineer, right? Like very direct to the point. Wasn't being mean. And he actually gave me.
Yeah, I don't think he was mean. I work with the new developers, a junior developer in the team, and sometimes it gets stressful, like when they don't get it, the basic things. But I mean, that's a part of process. Uh, and but the thing is, sometimes you don't give the developer the feedback they deserve, right? Maybe they don't even know that they were doing these mistakes. So someone has to tell them, okay, maybe you need to improve in these areas or that area so that you can be more useful in the team. This is what I would do. But even he said those things when he was leaving. So that's the reason people don't say those things, because that could hurt someone's feeling. I mean, for sure.
Me some really practical advice. I just kind of sat there, nodded my head as I'm dying inside and thinking, oh man, this person I respect and look up to, who's younger than me, is telling me all the reasons why I suck. And it wasn't a surprise, actually. He was completely right. And I knew that, that I had a lot to learn here. So I did what he said. I wrote down a lot of the things he was talking about: promises, closure, ES6. I decided I was going to speak up more when I needed help instead of just kind of waiting and doing all this mental gymnastics in my mind about how to get things done. And I asked him, what books would you recommend? I asked the other developers what books they would recommend. I started reading them during a one-on-one with the CT.
Yeah, this is what I would encourage a new developer to do, a beginner developer. Let's say you get a job and they're paying you good. your job is not just to do the work they assign you. That's not the job uh, I would do. You would do that. In addition to that, you will keep exercising so that you can improve your basics. That's the one thing you need to do. Once you get the job, you don't need to do like the newest framework. I wouldn't do that. For next at least a year, I will just do the basics. I'll do my job, I'll do the tickets, the stories they assign to me, I'll complete that, and when I have some time left, I'll just do the basics for 1 year. I get a book, just like he said. He asked, what books can I read? So get those books. I think he will tell us the name of the books. You can write it down as well if you want to. But get some books, good books, and practice at least the basics, so that after a year you have good knowledge of your current tech stack, as well as you have good solid understanding of basics of that language or framework. This is what I did, and this is what I recommend everyone to do.
TO, he said, "Hey, Brian, I notice you like never speak up during meetings. It's like 3 of us in this company now. We need you to do that. We need you to share your ideas so we can make sure that we're not just doing what I think is right." He's like, I need that feedback from you. And he said, it doesn't really work in a company this small to just not be involved. And I took that to heart too. So I was getting a lot of not great feedback, but practical feedback, which was really, really helpful. So I said, okay, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to start speaking up. I'm going to read these books. I'm going to make practical examples of these concepts, which I don't understand. I'm going to write them down. I'm going to write small articles about them. I'm going to comment my code to make sure that I understand what I'm doing actually, instead of just getting things done. I was in the wrong frame of mind of, I just need to get this thing done. So
this is what happened in a job. They give you some stories, user stories they call it, or tickets you can call them, and you just have to fix that problem, fix that issue, or make a feature. But if you are being added to a team which has already growing a product, and your part is to come and make some changes here and there, you wouldn't be able to get that muscle or exercise that muscle where you think about a solution in a new way. So what do I mean by that? So it's okay to work in a big project, but sometimes you need a small project as well, where you have like full freedom to do things, to do mistakes, and to test different ways of doing things. So you can start, like I told you, like you should start with the basics, as well as you can start with doing some kind of side projects, so that you can improve your muscles of building things, so that you can create something from scratch. It's one thing to work in a team where product is already built and you just need to add features. It's completely another thing where you need to create something from scratch. So as soon as you can, you should start working on that part as well. Don't wait that someone will come and tell you, because someone in the future will come and tell you, but you won't be able to do that job properly.
People can get off my back so I can just go do more and more work. My goal was to just get stuff done and not need to understand what I was really doing. That was a big mistake.
Yeah.
I needed to slow down, especially at this stage in my career, to understand exactly what I was doing, why it made sense, and understand software rather than understanding these frameworks that I was using. So instead of, for example, understanding how to be a great developer at my last company using this stack like C# and Angular or whatever, I was good at doing that small subset of stuff, but I wasn't good at general software engineering. I didn't understand like the overall theme of like, okay, why does this work the way it does? Anyway, the more I learned into that, the better I got. I bought Udemy courses, read tons of articles. I went down YouTube rabbit holes. I got mad and rage quit. And then I finally came to grips with, okay, I wrote down what I needed to do. I started checking it off one by one. And I thought, okay, I actually know this stuff now. Felt really good actually to be like, and it wasn't even that hard. It wasn't like some crazy months-long exercise. Like I did a lot of this stuff in the first like just few weeks. I didn't read a ton of books. I just sat down in the code editor. I wrote down how do promises work. Let me write a promise out.
Yeah, so he broke down things he wasn't good at, and then he just practiced them. And this is what I would recommend anyone to do. I mean, you can just copy what he's doing and implement that. There's no need to change anything.
Learn a little bit. Let me write a small little blurb about them. Boom. I felt pretty good about it. I'm like, every single time there's a meeting, I'll come prepared. I'll read about the meeting beforehand, or I'll ask about it beforehand. I'll come with a single pre-made question. So that way I'm not freaking out and bumbling around trying to think of a question to ask. This helped me gradually, incrementally get better. And here's the thing, I never became the second worst developer on this team. It was a small team. People were just much better than me. And yeah, it was okay though. But I sucked a lot less. So that was my whole goal. I said, I'm going to suck less and less.
Yeah. So if you get this kind of feedback, then you would just, you don't plan to be like the best developer. You would be like, okay, I'll suck less and less and less, and to the point you don't suck at all.
And less and less and less. Eventually, the CEO decided to leave. The company was going through like a bit of a organizational change, you could say. I ultimately decided to leave too. And I look back on that time as the most pivotal time in my career so far. I worked with some of the smartest people I've ever met. I got some great feedback that was really difficult to hear at the time and that you often won't get from people unless you seek it out. So I didn't actually seek out this advice at all. These people were kind enough and brave enough to tell me what was wrong and how to get better. And this made me a better engineering manager. It helped me get to senior engineer at the next company because I took those lessons. I took that mindset and that pattern, that method to learn stuff. I'm like, well, how do you learn stuff? And I found out how. You literally write down what is the gap between who I am and where I want to be, and how do I get there? What is missing? And be really specific.
I think he gave you the secret sauce. Just be very specific, find areas where you need practice, and just do that.
So in my example, it was I need to know these core JavaScript concepts, and I'm going to get these skills by doing X, maybe getting a Udemy course, maybe just literally writing them out. So that gave me like a framework to actually make progress, right? Some of the best books that I read during this time, by the way, that you may get a kick out of as well, Clean Code in JavaScript.
Yeah, that's the time to maybe note down these book names.
Book actually is very practical. It affected the way and still affects the way that I think about writing code in JavaScript, organizing my JavaScript projects, and generally a good approach to writing modern web development, writing modern JavaScript. The Phoenix Project, another great book. This is the only fictional book that I'm aware of that is really good for software engineers. It's a fictional book that you'll get a kick out of if you work in corporate America because it has all the cringy corporate-y stuff that we're all used to, all the red tape and casual Fridays and all that junk that we make fun of on TikTok and stuff like that. Anyway, check it out. It will teach you a ton about DevOps, modern software development, the software development life cycle. And it generally just is a good book to read. You don't even have to be a software developer to enjoy this book. The Phoenix Project, definitely a top pick for you if you are just getting into web development. If you're advanced or want to get advanced or maybe just confuse yourself, pick up Functional Light JavaScript by Kyle Simpson. Kyle Simpson in general, excellent developer, amazing JavaScript guru. Guy is too smart for his own good, knows more JavaScript than maybe anybody out there. He wrote this book. It's about how to write JavaScript in a functional light way. Functional light is a programming paradigm. It's a way to write code in a certain way. It's very complex and abstract, but he does a really good job of making it practical, which I really appreciated. I had my team read this as well.
Yeah, I'll add the name of these books in the description. And I think that's probably the end of his podcast. I'll add the link below as well. You can watch or you can listen to this podcast as well. And yeah, I mean, I hope you get some good points from from Brian's experience. Yeah, and I think that's all from this video, this reaction video. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching.